a few questions regarding anything World No Tobacco Day related. You familiar?
You might need some clarity.
You ready to answer some questions for us?
More ready.
Can you tell me in Barbados what is referred to as Fanta?
A drug.
Tell me what Fanta is.
It's a form of tobacco.
I understood that it's not good for you.
The thing you're putting before you're putting the good stuff. Define the good stuff.
When you roll up the weed and think.
If you eat it, it's bad.
The weeds.
If you smoke it, it's bad.
Thank you for asking that question, sir.
It bugs the brain.
We don't smoke the weeds.
So there's Fanta, but it comes from Fonto.
Oh, nicotine.
No backers.
Yes, the legislation. Is smoking in public places in Barbados banned?
Yes.
I could get a phone call.
This is the millionaire. This is the millionaire one.
World No Tobacco Day.
Unmasking the appeal. Well known.
That's what we're talking about right now with the National Council on Substance Abuse and with the Ministry of Health and Wellness. So joining me to continue the unmasking of the appeal is Makeda Bourne, who is a drug prevention officer with the National Council on Substance Abuse, and next to her, with a whole head of hair, is Kimbell Lashley, a technical assistant with the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Yes,
ladies, good morning indeed.
Good morning.
Makeda, I like that effort that we just saw because you were testing the pulse. What do we know? And then to find out what we don't know to fill those gaps as well. So now that you've heard the voice of the people, what don't we as people know?
I want to start off by saying good morning to Barbados, and indeed it was a lot of fun going out in the community. Pulse of the People is the brainchild of Camille, actually, so I'm going to let her speak a little more to that.
So Camille,
Yes, please.
why did you go out to get the pulse of the people, and what did you learn having taken the pulse of the people?
So Pulse of the People comes from the NCD department within the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And I thought to myself, when I put forward the proposal, we do things for the people of Barbados. That is the mandate of the Ministry of Health and Wellness and any government body in general. But do we know the grassroots? Do we know what happens on an everyday basis, like from day to day for persons within the communities? A lot of the times we don't. You know, we look at things from a political level only. And yes, while the policies are there to help persons, we need to know what are they actually thinking? Are the things that we're doing, are the efforts that we're putting in continuously actually getting to them? So I said, why not go into these communities, actually see what these people are thinking, and partnering with Makeda on the World No Tobacco Day initiative was one of the ways in which we realized, okay, there are gaps in terms of persons actually understanding and implementing things within the legislation in their everyday lives. So it kind of helps us, as you said, fill the gaps in terms of knowledge, and helps us to figure out, okay, where can we as government entities go in terms of health promotion initiatives, education initiatives, and how is it that we can maybe shift or form different policies that help to address the more relevant issues, obviously using evidence-based information as well from international health governing bodies. But yeah, it's just a way for us to get to, you know, the pulse of the people, so to speak.
Yeah. So far so good. You know you have a broader sense of where those gaps are.
For sure.
Do you think you have sufficient time to fill without to avoid catastrophe?
I think that there's a technical answer to it, and then there's a layman answer to it. And I could leave the technical answers for more able persons, such as like our Senior Medical Officer of Health, or the Deputy Chief Medical Officer, or Dr. George, who is our Chief Medical Officer. But from a technical assistant perspective, I think that there's always time for intervention. There's always time for us to implement things, because it is simple things we do on a day-to-day basis that help improve our health. The most minuscule things you could think about, like either changing your diet or, you know, taking a walk instead of using the elevator. Those are small increments of activities and healthy habits that, you know, end up helping us in the long run, so to speak.
Makeda, we're still up against that monolith that says, I'm a marketer and I have to have you consume my product. So therefore, I'm going to trigger all of those emotions within you to make you want my product. Are you seeing success in knocking that monolith down?
So one of the things that we recognize in Barbados is that a lot of persons are unaware of the Health Service Smoking Regulation 2017 that speaks specifically about marketing tobacco products, especially vaping, to children under 18. So internationally, they are doing that. So we're seeing colorful vapes. We're seeing colorful fruit flavors, things that make persons feel that it is okay to use, is healthy to use. And because of that, a lot of persons, young persons, we are finding, and we're getting calls, even school-age children, are choosing to use this because they are basically the mask is on and they think it is okay to use. So our job with the theme this year on masking the appeal, we are trying to get out there to let young persons, especially and parents, schools, wherever we go, to know the truth behind vaping liquids, what young persons are putting in their bodies, and to know that vaping, the results coming out from the different reports shows that vaping is more harmful than a lot of persons think.
I was taken by surprise. I'll share my story last weekend with my godsons. And while waiting in line at the supermarket, one of them says to me, "Uncle, what's that? Why are they marketing this in here?" And he's 11. And I was pleased to hear that reaction. I then took the time to talk a little bit more about what vaping is and to test his knowledge so he understands. So it's getting through into school at the primary level.
Good.
But the access through marketing, because it was placed in the supermarket near the gums. You know, where you go and you buy those chewy things. So, and you know, chewy things appeal to children. So let's talk a little bit about that and what we need to start doing differently so that we see the difference in terms of what people choose.
So we are seeing persons are doing things, and it is genuine ignorance of the law. So that is why we have designed and established this campaign to get in the communities, that persons can be educated about what is the law. So for instance, what that person doing is illegal. You're not supposed to be displaying any form of tobacco products in Barbados, although they are legal. Advertisement to any form of access to young persons under 18 is breaking the law. And persons generally don't know that. Simple things like having toys or snacks that simulate smoking. You know, back in the day, some person may have chewing gum that look like cigarettes or the candy. Those things should not be imported, furthermore sold in Barbados. But we know, persons do not know. So that is why we are getting out there in the community. We are doing things like pulsing the people. We did another series, Did You Know? And we are really getting into schools for this month. We were in the schools and we were doing very comprehensive tobacco education. So wherever we can do, we are doing this. And then we are hoping to follow up with discussions with shopkeepers and so forth so that they too can have the information and hopefully make the wise choice.
One is hopeful. I'm so excited by the fact that he knew. That triggered an excitement pulse in me that was unbelievable. But then the problem arrives at you, Kamel, where now having had that consumption of an illegal substance or illegally marketed, now they come to you guys for help. They say, "Oh, help me please because I'm addicted to." Talk to me a little bit about what the Ministry of Health and Wellness is faced with every day almost, you know, whether, and at what age you find that people are coming presenting for assistance.
Again, a very technical answer, and yes, I'm a technical assistant, but I would leave the nitty-gritty to our senior persons. But I think this is a good opportunity as well to segue into our social media pages, because what we're doing is that the questions that you're asking me, we're trying to make that information a bit more palatable and open to the public. So there's opportunity for us to do, you know, like small interviews with the same senior management that I've talked about and answer those same questions online in a format that persons are able to, you know, consume. And it would seem as if we're like lowering the veil a bit so people understand that yes, these are problems that we're currently experiencing from an NCD perspective. You know, because as I said, I'm in the NCD department in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Obviously, cancer is associated with tobacco consumption. There's like oral, esophageal, like anything dealing with the mouth and throat and lungs, etc. And well, speak to correction, but while it is that lung cancer, for example, isn't really prevalent here in Barbados, it is something that, you know, that could occur. There's, as I said, the oral, esophageal, etc., dealing with like the mouth, respiratory system, cardiovascular issues. That's one thing that came up in our first Pulse of the People episode, where we made the link between tobacco consumption and cardiovascular issues. And obviously we know cardiovascular issues is a big problem here in Barbados. But I think the blanket answer is that the Ministry of Health and Wellness, regardless of, you know, a person's individual lifestyle habits. Our mandate is to help the people of Barbados. And whatever the problem, we'll be sure to be there to help you in terms of education as well as intervention and curative care at our primary and tertiary institutions.
So if I can add to that, Pearson,
Sure.
based on your question, the National Council of Substance Abuse, we did a primary school survey in 2020, and we are still alarmed and we are still seeing evidence that persons as young as 7 and 8 being introduced to drugs. And unfortunately, when we looked at the survey as well, it is the family that is the primary introducer to the drug. So one of the things we are seeing is, yes, young people are using drugs, and yes, we are seeing a spike of calls of persons at schools vaping. This is a huge problem, and one of the things we want persons to know is what vapes look like, because it can look like your pen. And parents and teachers could be unaware, right? So even if they're doing searches, if they're looking, they can bypass the instrument or the electronic device, not knowing that it is a vape. So we are seeing cases, we are getting calls, and we are trying to respond as best as we can.
Policy drives a lot of this as well, because if you can import it and market it, something has to be dealt with from a different perspective. Are you agitating for that?
Well, but we do have the legislation, you know, Health Service Regulation
So it's enactment?
2017 is really comprehensive. It is that it needs to be told some more to the public so that they are aware that it does exist, and then to have the backing in terms of the enforcement.
Enforcement. All right.
Definitely.
There's a lot still to be done.
Yes.
Lots still to be done. And you would have thought after all these years, you would get it. But there's a lot still more still to be done, because as generations come along,
Yes.
they need to be told and reminded. Because we adults, we're giving some very, very bad examples. And I think we need to start there as well, as adults, to take more responsibility for our actions and the examples we set for our young people as well, because we are damaging their future. And on this World No Tobacco Day, we need to start tackling the appeal for nicotine and tobacco. We need to start tackling it in a very serious way, and we want everyone's help in doing so. Makeda Bourne, the Drug Prevention Officer with the National Council on Substance Abuse. Good to see you again.
Wonderful being here.
Keep up the effort, keep up the great work. Don't lose your energy.
Yes,
You're doing well.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And Kimel Lashley, who is the Technical Assistant in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. I like the pulse.
Thank you.
Keep sharing with us on social all that we need to know, so that we can begin to catch the pulse. And this is a good pulse. This is a restoration of life.
Yes.
And so
Precisely,
that's the whole point.
precisely.
So we're looking forward to more coming from your hands and your creativity as well. Thank you both, ladies. All right.
Thank you.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning.